Many futuristic themed racing games saw home on the PlayStation during its lifespan. Some of them would also be ported to a variety of other consoles and platforms that in many cases proved to be popular enough, but at the same time had a lot of competition, because at that period we had the likes of the ever popular Wipeout series, which to be honest really set the standard for futuristic racers, as that had everything: great graphics, great visuals, great control systems, and some of the best soundtracks ever in video games. And it just progressively got better with each iteration, especially on the PlayStation. Like me personally, I still personally believe that the original 3 games on the PlayStation console, the first generation of the Wipeout series, are by far the best in the entirety of the series. Well, we did have later entries on future consoles that were brilliant in their own right, but in my personal opinion, they don't compare to the original games. I just think that they are the best. They just really suit the vibe and aesthetic and the futuristic theme that the PlayStation was going for. And I just think that that style really suited the 32-bit graphics and presentation of the game. It was just beyond anything ever seen during that period. But it still didn't stop other developers from trying to cash in on this trend. And they all presented some very unique ideas and concepts. Let's just put it that way. And one of the games in question that we'll be looking at here goes by the name of Killer Loop, that was released for the PlayStation, Windows PC, Sega Dreamcast, and was also added to the arcade. The Dreamcast version of the game was also rebranded under the name Magforce Racing, and is pretty much a futuristic themed racing game that takes a lot of inspiration from Wipeout and other games like it, especially with the likes of the unique track elements and design features that were in the game. Now, the game upon release didn't get overly great reviews, especially on the likes of the PlayStation and the Dreamcast, but it did receive favourable reviews on the PC. The game does have some very nice visuals. It actually has a really good dance type futuristic soundtrack that really suits the whole aesthetic of the game. But the game only has 6 available tracks, with a total of 6 vehicles to choose from, all spread out over 4 different classes. But there's no 2-player mode, so that was one of the downfalls with the game. The game is very fast paced. You collect items and then you can utilise weapons, very similar to Wipeout, as you collect weapons and other pickups throughout each of the races. They can be used to aid in your progress, to eliminate other opponents, to also create defense systems to shield you from attacks, but also give you speed boosts so that you can catch up or get ahead of your opponents as well. It has some very quirky and unique elements and is very fast paced, very similar to the likes of the Wipeout games. But I will say that the game is difficult to control, because even though you're racing on like a futuristic ship or kind of like hovercraft, the centre of gravity is much lower to the ground than would have been seen in say Wipeout or any games like it. So the control systems do take a bit of getting used to. They are a little bit more on the twitchy side, so sometimes you can get round corners very easily, while other times you will hit a wall and it will slow you down. So there is a lot of strategy involved to ensure victory pretty much, and to just try and keep yourself alive while you're racing. But the lack of a 2-player mode definitely would have not done well with regards to the overall positivity around this game. The game itself, while it did have many unique elements, it didn't sell overly well. But in saying that, many people, even myself included, its first entry or first access to this game would have been part of a free demo that would have came on one of the UK PlayStation magazines in late 1999, where you got to play as one of the tracks from the game itself. So it gave you a taste of what the game represented. Now, I remember even going back, I think I still actually have this demo here from what I remember, because I still have a load of old demo CDs, and I'm sure that the game is on one of them, but I do remember distinctly playing it. And yes, it is a Wipeout clone. For me, it's not as good as Wipeout, but it definitely is different. It has its own interesting quips and quirks, and I found it to be quite enjoyable and fun to play, although it is very difficult. It's very, very hard to win races in the game. But I remember playing this demo quite a lot back in the day. So even getting round now to play the full game in its entirety, yes, it's still fun, but it is, again, like I said, very difficult. And the future later tracks in the game become a lot more interesting, let's just put it that way, because there's a lot more turns, twists, a lot more obstacles to avoid, and the game can become very, very overwhelming and very difficult very quickly, because you have to mix up the fast-paced elements with the gameplay, but you also have an unbalance with the AI opponents, because in later tracks they're completely gone, so far ahead of you that you will never catch them no matter what you do in the race. No amount of speed boosts, no amount of weapons you use, they're just so far gone that even if you do manage to get into like maybe 3rd or 4th place, 1st and 2nd place are that far gone that the race is pretty much over. You may forget about it. You just have to just play through it until the end. So there's definitely an imbalance with regards to the AI in the game, and I think that also contributed in its reviews, because it was stated that the game was overly difficult, to say the least, and I can definitely reflect on that, because yeah, the game is difficult. Now, it's not to say that it's a bad game. I found it to be very interesting, and And would I go back to play it again? Yeah, I would. It's different. It's reflective of its time, for sure. And it came in the late 90s, so it was trying to appeal to that, not only just the futuristic theme of the PlayStation, but it was also at a time when they tried to take those elements and tried to progress it further into the next generation. So this was kind of like the starting point of that happening. But it is an interesting title. If you like futuristic racers, if anything, this is probably one of the better ones on the PlayStation. Yes, we do have the Wipeout series and there are other games, and some of them are decent, but there are others that definitely have their distinctive quirks. Now, they're all flawed in many ways. They all have their own intricacies, but there are some that are better than others. And this one here, if you put time into it, it is enjoyable, but mind you, it is very difficult. That's all I'm going to say. But regardless of what you think, that is up to you at the end of the day. Some will like it, some won't. Some probably preferred other versions of the game to the PlayStation version, probably played it on the Dreamcast or even in the arcade or on the PC. So whichever versions of the game that you did play, I would love to hear your thoughts of Killer Loop for the PlayStation, or like I said, pretty much any format you played the game on. And what did you think of it overall? Is it a game that you enjoyed playing, or do you like these futuristic themed racers that were appearing around that time? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other types of futuristic themed racers that were also released on the PlayStation, then you can check out the videos here on screen, and even some other videos I've covered previously on the channel that will look at those games in more detail so that you can see them in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.